I've compiled a list of games that I really wanted to enjoy, but for whatever reason my baboon brain just didn't. And to be clear, it's not that these games are bad, far from it actually. Most of them are universally acclaimed, widely beloved, and for good reason. The disappointment comes from the fact that I personally couldn't get into them, even though everything about them seemed like it should have been perfect for me. And honestly, I don't think I'm alone in this. I feel like everyone has at least one game where you hear nothing but glowing reviews. It looks like it was made for you, finally sit down to play it, and nothing clicks. So, I wanted to share my list. Games that I wanted to love, games that I can appreciate objectively, but games I just couldn't enjoy the way I had hoped. And I'd love to hear from you too. What's a game everyone raves about that just didn't work for you, or a game that looked like it was made for you but you still couldn't enjoy it? Let's start with Journey. Man, this game is something else. I went in completely naive, maybe a little arrogant. I expected this artsy, pretentious, all visuals no substance experience, something I'd finish, shrug and forget about in a week. Journey is aptly named. It's about the journey. It clocks in at just around 2.5 hours, every single minute is used beautifully. The visuals are gorgeous, the music is emotional, the world is strange and beautiful, and then there's the multiplayer. Now, the multiplayer isn't like normal multiplayer. You don't see names, chat, or even know if the other person is human at first. You're just silently paired with a stranger. I honestly assumed it was an AI, but no, a real person. And because there's no conventional communication, the game lets you cooperate in the most subtle way. You stick together, you flash your little light to signal, you wait if the other fall behind, and somehow you bond. And yet, here's the thing, the story I didn't click with at all. For me, Journey turned into a less engaging walking simulator in a lot of parts of the game. I found myself holding the stick forward just to get to the next checkpoint. I love fast movement in games, running, jumping, flying through environments, and this game has great movement, but it spends a lot of the time slowing the player down. And when a game slows that down, I lose interest instantly. Even though it's just 2.5 hours, I spend most of it bored, and that's why I couldn't enjoy it as much as I wanted. Ori is another one that hurt, because at the start it felt perfect, and beautiful visuals, incredible music, a story that hit me emotionally in the first 10 minutes, which is rare for me. Usually it takes a lot longer for me to actually care, but Ori grabbed me immediately. The movement in this game is a highlight. Once you unlock wall jumps, dashes and other abilities, you can traverse the world fluidly. It feels like flying, traversal is fun and addictive, and it makes you excited for what other abilities you might unlock. But combat didn't land for me. At first, it felt shallow, repetitive and unsatisfying. Pressing attack and watching enemies die didn't feel rewarding. Sure, it got a bit better as I unlocked more abilities, but it never matched the highs of the movement or the visuals. And then there's the pacing. Ori's fast fluid movement is amazing, but the platforming often forces you to slow down. Again, deadly sin for me. Tiny sequences that required speed and precision were too rare, and some mechanics, like carrying that stupid glowing orb, felt tedious. They interrupted the flow I loved. The movement was wasted on a game that kept asking me to stop. The highlight was at the end when the forest is burning down and the obstacles are falling all over. That's why, despite loving some aspects of it, I couldn't fully enjoy Ori the way I wanted. Pony Island is weird. I wanted to love it because the premise is so bizarre and intriguing. You're not just playing a game, you're inside a game, being manipulated by a demonic arcade machine. That meta twist grabbed me right away. I love games that mess with the fourth wall, and Pony Island promised that in spades. The first hour was actually fun. The game breaks the fourth wall, throws winks at the player and makes you feel like you're in on a secret. I was genuinely curious to see how far it would take its clever self-aware narrative, but then the gameplay started to drag. for a 2-hour game, it's surprisingly repetitive. Most of the time, you're just running through simple platforming with frustrating gimmicks. The occasional logic puzzle is clever, but too sparse to break up the monotony. And the pacing, brutal. Text scrolls so slowly and you can't skip it, which kills the momentum that the game initially promises. The writing also misses the mark sometimes. The Lucifer 666 stuff aims for spooky or edgy, but it often feels childish and over the top instead. Some moments could have been clever or unsettling, but instead they come off as forced or awkward. It's not a bad game, the concept is creative, and I get why people love it. My friend bought it for me, and my girlfriend enjoys it a lot. But for me, the repetitive platforming, slow text and uneven narrative tone made it hard to enjoy fully.
I can't let another kid die.
I'm not gonna let that happen.
I've been a fan of Telltale's The Walking Dead series since the very beginning. I've played all the games, I have 100% achievements, and I even enjoyed season 3 a lot. So naturally I was hyped for the final season. I wanted to wrap up Clementine's story in a way that felt emotional and meaningful. At first, it hit some of the right notes. The art style, the voice acting, the atmosphere are all classic Telltale. You can see the effort put into creating a world that's still harsh, tense and emotional. There are moments where it really shines, like small character beats that reminds you why you followed Clementine's journey for so long. But then the game starts dragging. The story feels off in comparison to previous seasons, and the gameplay often gets in the way. There's a lot of forced interaction with the items in the environment, which feels tedious. For example, if you want to progress, you're suddenly checking every little object, talking to characters you don't care about, and generally doing busy work doesn't really impact the story. It interrupts the flow and makes you feel limited, even though it's supposed to be a narrative-driven experience. Character relationships also feel shallow. In previous seasons, choices mattered, decisions could build trust, cause tension, or have a long-term consequence. Here, it often feels like choices are superficial. Sure, someone might live or die depending on what you do, but it rarely changes the core story. Deaths and consequences don't carry the same weight, which makes it hard to truly invest. It's sad too, because Clementine's story is a storyline I've followed since I was 12. She's been a character you grow with, and seeing her journey end is emotional. The game wasn't terrible, and at least for the first time in the series, Clementine doesn't end up alone, which is a nice touch, but compared to the other highs of earlier seasons, the final season fell short for me. The story sometimes felt thin, and the gameplay interruptions made it harder to connect with the moments that should have mattered the most. So, while I appreciate what they were trying to do, giving Clementine a proper send-off, I just didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted. The game has its heart in the right place, but it didn't stick for me the way earlier seasons did. Don't Starve Together is one of those games I really thought I would love. The art style is unique, the music is great and the world is weirdly charming, full of strange creatures and little discoveries. At first I was hooked. Crafting is clever, the characters had personality, and I loved the idea of balancing hunger, sanity and health. But pretty quickly, the fun turned into stress. Managing all of those survival meters felt more like a chore than a challenge. Dying consistently, losing progress, and trekking back to base just wore me down. The steep learning curve didn't help either. The game throws you in with almost no guidance, expecting trial and error to carry you through. Crafting, which should have been fun, just added pressure. Recipes aren't always intuitive. The menus can feel clunky, and I was always stressed about whether to focus on food, tools or shelter. Even when I wanted to explore, I never felt safe. There was always some monster or hazard waiting to punish me. I get why people love this game. The atmosphere, creativity and challenge are undeniable, but for me, the constant stress of punishing difficulty kept it from being fun. I wanted to enjoy it, but it ended up feeling more overwhelming than rewarding. Mirror's Edge grabbed my attention immediately when I was like 10 watching my cousin play this. because of its focus on movement, running and jumping. And parkouring across a futuristic city sounded amazing, though I didn't play it until this year when I'm 25. I love games that emphasize speed and fluidity, and the clean, minimalistic visuals made the city feel open and alive. The soundtrack and ambient sounds added to that immersive feeling. At first, the movement is super exciting. Chaining jumps, slides and wall runs feels insane. When it clicks, those movements really show why people praise the game. I wanted to push myself to keep moving, stringing together perfect runs across rooftops. But then the controls started to frustrate me. Faith doesn't always do exactly what you want. Sometimes she grabs a ledge you didn't intend, or misses a jump that felt obvious. Level design often forces you to start sequences that slow you down, which is the opposite of what makes the game fun. Combat was another letdown. You can punch, kick, disarm and shoot, but none of those feels satisfying. It interrupts the flow instead of adding to it. Often it's just easier to run past the enemies, which makes the combat feel unnecessary. But without the combat it would also just feel like a tech demo. Some areas are well designed, offering creative paths and fun sequences, but others feel linear and restrictive. It pulls you out of the immersive parkour experience. Story-wise, Faith is interesting, but I rarely felt fully invested while focusing on movement. Cutscenes and gameplay often feel disconnected. Mirror's Edge has moments of brilliance, but inconsistent controls, clunky combat, and restrictive level design held me back. It's creative and ambitious, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped. I wanted to feel unstoppable, flying across the city, but too often I felt slowed down or frustrated. Untitled Goose game immediately caught my eye because you play as a goose whose main goal is to wreak havoc in a little town. I loved the idea. Sneaking around, honking at people, stealing objects and causing chaos sounded hilarious and perfect for a light-hearted game. At first, it's exactly what you hope for. Sneaking past townspeople, figuring out their routines and setting up little pranks is satisfying. The level design is charming and the sound design, especially the honks, adds to the comedic vibe. Exploring the town and experimenting with items can be fun and rewarding, but soon frustration started piling up. The AI can be inconsistent. Sometimes townspeople are too easily outrun, and other times one touch or grab causes you to drop an item, ruining whatever plan you have. The game encourages a stealthy, puzzle-like approach, but the tools feel limited, which forces repetition. Instead of feeling clever, I often felt like I was brute forcing solutions. The puzzles themselves feel a bit scripted. Many goals follow a strict path. Figure out the one way to succeed, then repeat it. That limits creative freedom, and once you've done a few pranks, the novelty wears off. Even the humor, while clever at first, starts to feel repetitive. The townspeople's reactions are exaggerated for comedic effect, but once you've seen a few, it stops feeling fresh. I don't want to be too harsh. The game is creative and unique. It has a strong identity and short bursts of play can be genuinely fun. But the combination of repetitive puzzles, limited freedom and sometimes frustrating AI made it harder to stay engaged for long periods. The concept is brilliant, the world is cute and the humor is clever. Terraria is one of those games I really wanted to enjoy. On paper, it's fantastic. A massive 2D sandbox with tons of crafting, building, exploring and fighting. I love games where you can explore, gather resources and experiment with creative freedom. So Terraria seemed like it had all the right ingredients. At first, I liked it. Digging through the earth, discovering new materials, and finding hidden treasures gave a sense of discovery. The combat is fast-paced, and the bosses can be genuinely exciting. There's also a huge variety of items and weapons, which is impressive. The world feels alive, and the sheer number of things it can do is mind-blowing. That's exactly why I kept playing when I first started. But as much as I wanted to love it, Terraria eventually wore me down. A lot of the game revolves around combat, and the combat in this game just isn't my scene. Yes, you gather resources and build, but all of that ultimately funnels into fighting enemies or bosses. The excitement of exploration is often overshadowed by the need to constantly farm materials just to survive or progress. The sheer number of items and crafting options is overwhelming. It's impressive, but it can also feel exhausting. Every update adds more and more bosses, more mechanics, and while it's exciting for some, for me it became a chore. I spent more time reading wikis or trying to remember recipes than actually enjoying the game. Collecting gear and resources, which should feel rewarding, started to feel like work. Playing with friends sometimes helps, but that's another double-edged sword. When everyone is new, it can be fun, but we quickly got lost or confused about what to do, and then the game stalls. On the other hand, when friends have hundreds of hours, they speedrun through all bosses and events while I'm still gathering materials trying to catch up. That disconnect makes it hard to enjoy co-op, which is supposed to be one of the fun parts of Terraria. Despite all that, I can see why Terraria is beloved. The world is huge, the design is detailed, and the sense of accomplishment when you defeat a boss or craft a powerful item is satisfying. It has charm, creativity, and depth that's hard to match, but for me personally, the combat-heavy gameplay, endless grinding, and occasional imbalance in multiplayer made it hard to enjoy as much as I hoped. Skyrim is one of those games I really wanted to enjoy. The world is massive, the atmosphere is incredible, and the soundtrack is unforgettable. From the moment you step into Skyrim, there's a sense of adventure. The cities, forests, mountains, and dungeons all feel alive in their own way, and the dragons are genuinely epic. I love how much freedom the game gives you. You can approach quests however you want and building your character in countless ways. Stealth, magic, melee, or a mix of all three. The world building is impressive too. Townspeople follow routines and the environment feels lived in. Discovering a hidden cave, stumbling across a new weapon, or finding ancient ruins can be thrilling. But despite all that, Skyrim started to feel repetitive. Interactions outside of combat or quests feel hollow, and many locations blend together. Same caves, same bandit camps, same monsters. Combat can feel repetitive too, especially once you find a setup that works. Stealth archer or magic heavy builds let you engage multiple mechanics, but other approaches often feels less rewarding. Quests are hit or miss. Some are memorable, but many are fetch or kill tasks that don't really matter. The Radiant quest system, meant to keep the world alive, often results in repetitive chores. Even storylines that are supposed to be interesting sometimes feel thin compared to the lore scattered around the world. Exploration has highs and lows. Wandering the map can be exciting, but without meaningful rewards, it sometimes feels like running in circles. Dragons are cool at first, but repeated encounters start to feel like random events, rather than epic battles. The freedom Skyrim offers is amazing, but it can highlight the repetitive elements in combat, quests, and exploration. Despite all that, Skyrim has a lot to admire. The scale of the world, the freedom, and the atmosphere is impressive. Climbing a mountain or wandering into a ruin can still feel epic. The game has charm, memorable moments, and a sense of adventure that's rare. For me though, the repetitiveness and the lack of depth in many interactions kept it from being the game I hoped it would be. I wanted constant surprises and meaningful discoveries. Too often it felt like going through familiar motions. The dragons, quests, and lore are great, but after a while it started to feel a little hollow. My friend Pedro immediately grabbed my attention, because it looks stylish, over the top and chaotic. A side-scrolling shooter with insane stunts, slow motion kills and ridiculous humor. That's exactly the kind of game I thought I'd enjoy. From the trailers it seemed perfect for experimenting with mechanics, chaining acrobatic kills and replaying levels for higher scores. At first it delivered. The early levels are wild, jumping off walls, flipping through the air, ricocheting bullets and taking out enemies in slow motion feels incredible. The levels encourage creativity in combat, and the freedom to string together crazy moves keeps it exciting. The humor is absurd and entertaining, adding a lot of charm. Movement and shooting feel fluid, and combining parkour with gunplay makes each level feel like a mini action set piece. You feel powerful, inventive and in control. I spent a lot of time replaying early levels to perfect my score, and that's exactly what I wanted, a playground of stylish chaos. But then the game shifts. At a certain point you enter a stuck in your head segment with platforming challenges. Initially it's an interesting twist, but the novelty fades quickly. From there the game starts feeling more like a platformer than the chaotic shooter that drew me in. The focus moves from creative kills to precise jumps and dodges. The platforming isn't bad, but it interrupts the flow that made the early hours so fun. The pacing suffers too. Early levels are fast and explosive, but later sections forces you to slow down, plan moves carefully and retry sequences repeatedly. It's like the game sets up an amazing playground and then asks you to follow a strict path, which breaks the freedom and chaos that hooked me in the first place. Despite that, the game still has a lot going for it. The style, the humor and the early combat sequences are fantastic. Level design, while uneven, offers brilliant moments where you can chain acrobatics and kills. There's genuine joy in experimenting with the mechanics, and those first few hours showcase the game at its best. For me though, the shift in focus made it hard to stay fully engaged. It's clever and ambitious, but the identity change kept it from being the consistent thrill I hoped for. So yeah, those are the games I really wanted to enjoy but just didn't. And I want to be clear, these games aren't bad, far from it. They're well made, creative and loved by a lot of people, but for whatever reason my brain just didn't click with them the way I hoped. I think there's something uniquely frustrating about that. You hear about the game, everyone raves about it, and you finally get your hands on it only to realize you just don't have fun. You want to love it, but it doesn't happen, and honestly I think most of us have at least a few of those games tucked away. It's not about being wrong for liking them or thinking they're bad, it's just personal taste. Maybe it's pacing, gameplay, style or even the way a game treats its mechanics. Maybe it's just the timing of when you played it. Whatever it is, it's disappointing because you wanted to enjoy it. For me, games like Journey, Ori, Pony Island and The Walking Dead all had things I loved, but also things that kept me from fully enjoying them. Maybe it was pacing issues, repetitive gameplay, clunky mechanics or just not clicking with the story. That's okay. Part of gaming is figuring out what you connect with and what you don't. And sometimes the games you don't enjoy can still teach you something about your preferences, your patience or even the type of games you want to explore next. So now I want to hear from you. What's your I really wanted to love this but didn't game? The one everyone raves about and yet you just didn't. Thanks for sticking around throughout this list of games I wish I enjoyed more. Even though they didn't fully click for me, I can still appreciate the effort, creativity and the love that went into making each one of them. And who knows, maybe someday I'll revisit one and I see it in a totally new light. Until then, these are the ones that left me wanting more.